Welcome to Search Talk Live with search engine optimization and marketing experts Robert O'Haver and Caleb McKelvin, powered by the Robert Palmer family of companies.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Search Talk Live. I'm your host, Robert O'Haver, with my other host, Caleb McKelvin.
What's
going on, Caleb?
Up, Rob? Man, I'm happy to be back for another episode of Search Talk Live. We have an awesome one today, just like all the other ones, but we're glad that you are joining us today because we got some great info for you.
Yes. Now, those of you just tuning in for the first time on Search Talk Live, we are broadcasted live on iHeartRadio every Tuesday, 3:30 to 4:30. We're also listed on Spreaker, iTunes, and all that stuff. We're broadcasting live there as well, but you can go and listen to previous shows on searchtalklive.com. And you can get previous shows. We've had just, you name it. We've had probably the top people. Well, not probably.
We have had
the top people in the industry. And we continue to do that every week. And it's grueling and fun. And we give so much good information for every part of the industry as far as digital goes. It could be search engine optimization. It could be social media. Conversion optimization, you name it, we cover it. Paid advertising.
Yes.
And today is no exception. We're going to talk about social media a little bit. Our guest today is Mark Traphagen. He's a senior director of online marketing at Stone Temple Consulting. Mark, how's it going?
Hey, it is going great. So good to be with you guys. We always enjoy the show ourselves. So
awesome.
It's nice to be with you.
Yeah, so today we're going to talk about social media and how it impacts your SEO efforts, correct?
That sounds like something I'd like to talk about.
Right up your alley, huh?
Let's geek out.
No. I'm glad you didn't choose cricket or something.
Yeah. Well, let's get started here. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Mark?
Well, as you said, I'm a senior director of marketing for Stone Temple Consulting, which means I have a very meta job. I market a marketing agency. But this is we're a 70-plus person digital marketing agency, full service, serving major brands, global brands, with SEO, content marketing, and social media in integrated ways. And I came into this business in a crazy sort of way. I was a teacher, a salesman first, and then a teacher for a couple of decades. Then went to grad school late in life and was working in a little bookstore, actually the campus bookstore, which was getting killed by Amazon. So the director came to me and said one day, "You know about this internet thing? Take us online and see if you can save the store." So it was like being thrown in the deep end of the water. But we learned, and in a couple of years, we built a successful online presence for the store. And the bug bit, I said, "I like this thing." I felt like I invented internet marketing at the time, and then everything I came up with 6 months later, I found out, everybody does that.
Yeah.
But it was it was fun, it was challenging. It said, I like this, I can do it, and so I plunged into the industry, learned everything I could. Was very fortunate to get hired by some brilliant people at a little agency down in Raleigh called Verante, now called Angular Search Marketing. Mm-hmm. Got to work around a lot of smart people like Russ Jones, who's now at with Moz. And just learned everything I could, soaked up like a sponge, started writing, started speaking. And one day, Eric Enga from Stone Temple came along and said, "I choose you." And I said, "Okay, you're nuts, but let's try this out." That was 2.5 years ago, and it's been a great, great ride. I love Stone Temple. It's just such a reputable, wonderful company to work for. I feel like we're innovating all the time. I'm still having a chance to be challenged, and it's fun to talk about. So here I am.
Yeah, and you and Eric, you both seem like you both have a good time together. I mean, one thing I'd like you to mention, too, is the videos you guys put together helping other people in the industry as well. It's kind of like what we do with the podcast, but you guys do it on video. And it's very entertaining because you guys kind of do some role-playing and stuff like that. And
the videos you're talking about, the main series, we do a number of different series, but the main one is called Here's Why.
Yeah.
And the construct is that we like to say we're going to explain the why behind the what in digital marketing. And they're just little like 5 to 7 minute videos. But originally they just started out just me and Eric talking in front of a whiteboard. And kind of evolved over time just from our personalities. We're kind of the Abbott and Costello of digital marketing. We have that relationship. And we just started kind of getting goofier and goofier, and it evolved into doing these skits that became more elaborate, and then there were costumes and a green screen and sound effects and lots of post-production. And it's just fun. It's a way, there's a little introduction to each one that's kind of a skit that gets a metaphor going for what we're going to talk about. Then we talk, and it's we believe that anything you do in life should have a fun element to it, but we certainly hope that people see there's a lot of substance there, and we hear from people that they learn a lot from those videos as well. So thanks for mentioning it.
Yeah, sure. And people that want to go view it, where can they go to see those videos?
If they just go to to our site, which is very simply stonetemple.com, stonetemple.com, and go to the media tab, they'll find the Here's Why videos. The whole archive is there. Gotcha.
Very cool. Now, let's get down to it. Let's talk about some social media.
Yeah. All right. Do you want me to just plunge in? Or?
Yeah.
Dive in, lead off. What's going on with social media?
Social media. I hear it's a thing. I hear it's going to get popular, and people should look into it. I predict it's going to be big. Our topic today, and this is one that I've been investigating deeply for the last few years, kind of specializing in it, is what overlap is there between social media and SEO or search engines. And it's very interesting. It got even more interesting about the time that I got into it, around 2011, because that's when Google introduced Google+. And we said, okay, Google's jumping big into the the social media game now. Yeah. They're already, obviously the household word in search. So what does that mean? And the other thing that just watching people's assumptions, and part of my background, I think, I mentioned earlier that I was a teacher for a number of years. I was a part of that time. I was a history teacher, and I learned a lot of critical thinking skills from that. Historians have to look at everything with a slitted eye and kind of say, is that really the way it happened? And people assume all kinds of things about things that happen in history, and are they really the case? So I try to approach our marketing that way. So I began asking those questions. One of the assumptions that I heard all the time, and frankly, it was one that I myself assumed at the beginning, was that search engines like Google especially must obviously be using social media as a signal for search. And here's why. Here's why people think that. Okay, if you understand anything about how search engines work, they work on the basis of signals. The main signal that most people know about would be links. And that was Google's genius in the beginning, right? To put together this system where, noticing that, sites link to each other on the web, right. A link should have a meaning behind it. It's kind of a vote for that site, a citation. So if we can begin to assess those links and the value of them, then we have a system by which we can rank websites by search queries. So that's how Google operates. But we all know that over the years, while links remain very important and probably still remain central to those signals, they're always looking for other ways to measure. What's the quality of a page? What do people think about it? How well does it answer questions that people might be looking for the answers to, et cetera, et cetera. So when social media came along, here you've got, in public, the biggest focus group ever devised. It's people constantly talking with each other and sharing, hey, I like this. Have you seen this? Isn't this great? It seems like that would be a very rich place for social signals. And indeed, in the early days of social media, we had some strong hints from spokespeople from Google, certainly from Bing, that seemed to be saying hey, we are trying to use this. We are looking at it. But then it became a little more doubtful. And I think where the story really, beginning to get some hints when we hear Google people speaking at conferences that, maybe social media wasn't really as great a signal as they thought. So I'm going to jump to the conclusion, then we can work our way backward. And that is, I'm going to come right out and say it right now. I am 99.999% sure that Google does not use social media as a direct ranking signal. And I want to emphasize that word direct. Okay. So there's the conclusion, and you may have some listeners out there that are already disagreeing with me, but I'm going to try to, over the next few minutes here, make a case for that.
Okay.
So any questions at this point? Are we ready to launch in? Or
now, I mean, there's been some, with both, what's his name? My mind is going blank. John Mueller, had mentioned, they don't use it as a direct ranking factor, but it could happen indirectly, don't you think? I mean, like with the mentions and that type of stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's where we want to get to. So that's
Sorry.
we're going to tell a story here, and the story has a happy ending. Don't worry, folks.
All right.
All is not lost. You shouldn't give up on social media for a lot of reasons, but even in the SEO world, and I'm going to come around at the end and make a case for why social media is actually important to think about as part of your search marketing strategy. Okay. So we'll get to some of those things, but maybe first let's deal with why I think that it is not a direct ranking signal.
Right.
Why has Google turned away from that? So let me start with there's an article that I wrote for our blog on Stone Temple, and I actually updated it today, so I moved it to the top of the blog. So again, if people go to stonetemple.com and go to the blog tab, the first post that they'll see, at least right now, is called "Does Social Media Affect SEO?" Matt Cutts answers. And most people in the search world know that name, Matt Cutts.
Yeah.
For many, many years, Matt was the face of Google to those of us in the search marketing world. So Matt's currently on an extended hiatus from his duties at Google. He's probably working on some things of his own. I think he still hangs out with the team every once in a while, but he's definitely not as public as he used to be. But this was one of his. He used to do fairly regular little videos, like 2-3 minute long videos where he just answered viewer questions. So on this one video, a friend of mine, actually AJ Cohn, asked, does Google use Facebook and Twitter as search ranking signals? And the question made sense at the time, and still, admittedly, Facebook certainly, the largest player in the social media space, and Twitter has had its problems, but it's still a very big player, and one that Google has had an off and on relationship with. So it was a reasonable question. And, this caught my attention when I saw that video because the question was very, very direct. So let me go, and I did this post. I did an in-depth analysis, and I brought in a lot of other information, kind of point by point of what Matt said. But let me walk through some of the points here quickly, and absolutely break in at any point if you have a question or need more clarity on anything. The first point that Matt made in the video is that, first of all, Facebook and Twitter posts, or any social media post, we could say that's public, are treated like any other web page for search. So that's a fundamental understanding. So every tweet, every Facebook post, every Google Plus post, every LinkedIn message that's public is like a web page on its own. So it can have its own authority. It indexes to the words that are on it, just like a web page would be. Mm-hmm. So that's an important fundamental thing to understand. So we know that Google does index many of these social posts. You can find them right in you can find Facebook posts. You don't see them often, but you can find them depending on the search result. Excuse me. You certainly see Twitter or tweets in Google search results these days. Right. And that's because we'll get into this in a moment, where Google restored a deal that it once had, now has again for direct access to Twitter and tweets. So
one thing I wanted to mention too is with at least Twitter, Google is indexing those things really, really fast because especially if you're doing images with your tweets. I've seen images literally in like 2-3 minutes show up in the results. So
absolutely, and that's certainly a recognition. I think the value that Google sees of putting those in the search results is so often, especially with Twitter, it's something newsy. It's something happening right now. People tend to talk on Twitter about what's happening right now. So often, if you look at a news event or a trending hashtag or something like that, you're going to see tweets, and the tweets are going to be from moments ago.
Right.
They can index very fast. But here's the thing. People assume that the entire internet is indexed by Google. The truth is not even close. Now, Google indexes a huge amount of the internet, but they don't even attempt to index everything. So now, just talking about web pages that are relatively static, that change much less frequently than social posts, Google tells us they don't even attempt to index everything. First of all, they feel like they don't need to. It would be, as big as their resources are, it would be hugely taxing, hugely expensive to try to index everything that's out there. So they prioritize. Now, when you come to social media, first of all, just the size of what you're talking about is incredible. The amount of tweets being created every day, Facebook posts, Pinterest pins, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's in the billions upon billions every single day. So, again, they prioritize. And at Stone Temple, we've tested that. We've seen that. If people, again, at stonetemple.com, go to the it's be under the studies tab, and they can see social media and SEO studies. They can find some of the studies that we've run on that. For example, with Twitter, we did tens of thousands of queries where we looked for tweets and saw how many tweets were indexed out of the tweets that we were following. And we did that last year before the new pipeline deal between Twitter and Google went into place. And we found that after 7 days, about less than 1%, actually 0.6% of the tweets were indexed. So these are tweets that we could see 7 days in, and we followed them for a number of weeks after, and the number didn't go up very much higher than that. It went up a little bit over the weeks, but not much. Then we measured it again about a month after the Google pipeline deal. Now Google has direct access to everything, and it did go up significantly. It went up. In fact, it was a 466% increase. The numbers we're talking about, that's from 0.6% to 3.4%. So, and we've dived in a few times since. We've seen some increase, but not much. So, the bottom of the line here is that while a lot of tweets are being indexed, Google's not even attempting to index all of them.
Right.
Now, why that's important to our discussion. We did the same with Facebook. And again, found that not even smaller percentage of Facebook posts are ever indexed. And then also to go on Google Plus, which of course Google had complete access to, no barriers at all whatsoever there. While Google Plus posts do get indexed at a much higher rate, we did a separate test for there because we had a lot more access. And we actually did some very complicated tests and controlled tests to try to see if links from Google Plus, and this is back when the links were still followed, had any discernible influence on search ranking. And the bottom line of our test was that we couldn't find any evidence of that. Now you're going to hear people that had anecdotal evidence. Said, I posted something on Google Plus, and this individual page went up in ranking a few days later, and that it's all anecdotal. You can't test SEO that way because there's so many factors that affect things going up and down. But the bottom line here that I want to emphasize is that in most cases, in all cases except for Google Plus, Facebook actually indexes very little of it. The vast majority of it lets go by. And that's important to our discussion because that means there's an incomplete signal there. They're only ever getting a part of the picture. And I think the first thing that they're concerned about is because of that it would be to rely on it too much or to factor it in directly into search rankings would be skewing the rankings. It's like taking a blind sample, but you can never be sure if that's a representative sample.
Right.
Okay, so that's a big. I've spent a lot of time on that one, but I think it's important to understand. Okay, a second point is that, move down to it here, is that Google, should make this point right away, is that almost all of the social sites have now no-followed their links. And Google's pretty clear that they really try to respect the no-follow tag. For people who don't know the technical aspects of that. No follow is simply an instruction that you can add to a link that says to search engines, do not pass any authority on with this. So it can still pass traffic, obviously. People can click on it and go to wherever the link is to. But the search engine says, okay, you don't want us to pass any of your authority to this site. So it's a way of controlling how much of your page rank, how much of your authority is passed on, and who gets it. So almost all social media posts are no follow. The links on those are no follow these days. So that's another factor. But one of the things that Matt brought in the video that was very interesting was about identity. And the problem right now is that the identity on the web is very hard. That's an exact quote from him, even for Google. Mm-hmm. It's knowing for sure, because with a website again is relatively static. It has a history. It's there for a long time. Google can kind of watch it and see who else links to it. It gets an idea of what it's about. And so it's a little bit easier to figure out, okay, this site has some authority behind it. It's about these topics, et cetera, et cetera. But social profiles are a lot harder to verify and a lot harder to know for sure what authority they should have. So it's a lot tougher job than most people think to identify that. As a matter of fact, some of us out there, myself included, think that one of the main purposes of Google Plus was an attempt. If Google Plus had succeeded as they wanted it to, it would have been for that to get a large number on the web to set up profiles that are fully open to Google and fully identifiable and verifiable. I think a lot of Google Plus was an identity play. Of course, since the network didn't really take off, that kind of does not really help them.
Right.
So anything you want to break in with at this point before I go on? I have a few more points.
Caleb, you got some questions?
No, I'm soaking all this in. This is really good stuff.
Well, now there has been some controversy around the whole no follow thing.
Yes.
And as far as some SEOs are saying, it must pass something because Google's putting it in Search Console.
Right.
They're tracking all this stuff. Maybe it's not directly affecting ranks, but it's, maybe they're taking that as a weight as far as, what kind of traffic's coming from that link. Because they're tracking in analytics, that type of thing. Indirectly, it's giving them some kind of juice. You know what I'm saying?
Well, first, that's a great question. First of all, and this is, a lot of what I'm going to pass on is simply what Google has said. And some of the people who keep these controversies going just simply think that the Googlers are either misinformed or lying. So, I'm not of that opinion, but, that's, if you think they're deceiving, then there's, not much I can say about that. But Googlers who we've talked to have been very clear that they respect the no follow tag.
Sure.
That's one thing. Now, as far as whether or not there are kind of some more indirect ways that it could be passing on some kind of signal, that they're not willing to go on the record about. They'll be a little more cagey about that, or refuse to answer that, or kind of give a very ambiguous answer. I think it's a little bit more information than they want to pass on. Mm-hmm. So I am open to the possibility that, for example, while they may not directly pass traditional, if we can put it that way, authority through a no followed link, that for example, one way that a link could still be useful to them is, if there's even a lot of no follow links pointing at a certain site, but those links are all around a certain topic area. They're from posts and sites that have a certain topical relevance.
Right.
They may still kind of count that. Say it might be a contributing factor, or I always like to say confirmatory. It might be used to confirm other signals.
Right.
I think that's one thing that they do. When we talk about ranking factors, it gets a little grayer than people think. It's not black and white. I think some signals may be just confirmatory signals. They may just say add a little weight to other signals that are more direct. So ways like that, potentially, maybe the text around the link still has some relevance, but on the whole, I don't think that I think they do not pass on actual authority through those. Now, when we go to the social posts, remember everything else that I said. All the other difficulties come into play. So even if they do some of that, in some cases with web pages, links on web pages, I'm much more skeptical they do it with social links for all the reasons that I said. The other problems that are involved with an incomplete signal, a signal that's hard to assess the authority of where it's coming from. All those factors, I think, come into play.
Yeah. One thing I was thinking too is that, the way that Google looks at the links inside of a tweet, and then they look at the co-citation around that, maybe they're not following that link, but they'll look at that link and say, okay, this is what that link's about, going off the citation. You know what I'm saying? So that gives that page the relevancy.
That's possible. Yeah. That is possible. One thing that they have said, and this was actually reiterated just yesterday, I was telling you guys before we went on the air, that very timely, both John Mueller of Google and Gary Eish of Google tweeted yesterday in response to some questions going out, again confirming, no, we do not use social media as a direct ranking signal. But Gary added, we do discover. We'd use it for discovery, is the word that he used. And what that means is that they do use social links sometimes to discover new content. So they do, as we said, they do crawl tweets, they do crawl Facebook posts, they do crawl posts from other social media sites. And sometimes the link will lead to a page that they didn't know existed before. Mm-hmm. And that can cause it to get indexed. And we've tested that. Again, people kind of crawl through those our studies on our site. They'll find some studies where we test that, especially with tweets, that tweets can get a page indexed. We know that Google Plus is famous for that. This is one thing that's certain about Google Plus. You post something in Google Plus and that's not been shown up anywhere else, and you link to it from Google Plus, 99 times out of 100, it will get indexed. But we've proven that can happen with Twitter, and it probably happens with other sites too. So that's what they mean by discovery. So yeah, there are ways that they are using those links. They're not ignoring them altogether. It's just that they're suspicious of them as an authority signal.
And now, Mark, this is kind of one of the things I want to get into as far as the link side of things, is that things like LinkedIn Pulse, Facebook articles, other ways where you can actually publish blog post style content and include those links in there on some of these social media platforms. Is that going to change the game as far as that goes? Because, you can really kind of focus on a specific piece of content and kind of hit those home, but you can also have the opportunity to include those links in there. Is that going to change that aspect at all?
Yeah, that's a good question. And, it depends on whether those, first of all, of course, whether those links are followed again or not. That's up to the individual platform. But it's, again, a more complicated situation than people may first take into account. First of all, Google is not going to, this is a foolish idea that I've seen some people have. Really, if you were a search engine, would you do this? People think, they look and they say, holy moly, LinkedIn or Facebook or Google Plus or whatever it is, they have like really high domain authority. As a domain, they're probably like, most of those are up there at 100 or close to it. Mm-hmm. And, the full tilt. They are the most authoritative sites on the web almost. So, man, if I get a followed link on there, bazingo.
Right.
But, of course, the search engines are smarter than that. I think, like, just because you post a link on one of those sites does not at all mean that that link should get the authority, the domain authority of that site. Facebook didn't post the link. You did. So that comes back to the problem that we mentioned earlier, and that is how confident can a search engine feel about the authority of the profile creating the post. So even if it's published directly on the platform, they have to do that. Now, they're maybe working on ways to do that. I think an interesting place to watch is a place like Medium, mm-hmm. which is all about publishing. It's all that they do, and it's all user-generated content. Are they measuring that in some way? Are they looking at, are they beginning to find ways to try to assess authors on Medium and, say, this author seems to be carrying a lot of authority in this topical area, and so if he or she links to something either elsewhere in Medium or on the web that's about that topic, so that link carries some authority. Mm-hmm. I think those things are going to be interesting to watch, but that's getting a little bit outside. It's into a kind of an in-between area, right? That's not direct social posts.
Right.
But it carries some of the same difficulties, I think.
Yeah. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to Search Talk Live with hosts Robert O'Haver and Caleb McKelvin. We are live today with Mark Traphagen from Stone Temple Consulting. We do not have the phone lines today, but if you'd like to get your questions in, you can do so by getting at us on Twitter at Search Talk Live or Facebook. Just simply search Talk Live on Facebook. You can ask your questions there, or you can shoot us an email, Caleb at Search Talk Live or Robert at Search Talk Live. And we are sponsored by the Robert Palmer family of companies. You can go to robertpalmercompanies.com and see all they have to offer. A lot of good stuff there. I highly advise you check it out. But today we are talking social media and SEO with Mark Traphagen. So you can get your questions in.
Yeah, Mark, I want to play a clip that we have. This clip was done with an interview from Anton Slute from webpromo.expert. He has some great videos, but in this interview, your very own Eric Ng and Amon Johns and Rand Fishkin were in this interview with Andre. How do you say his last name?
Lepetev.
Yeah, Lepetev. And I think it's really kind of into what we're talking about here with social signals and stuff. But can you play that for us, David?
So, in your opinion, what's happening
there
that's making?
I want to set this up first. This Rand Fishkin he does a lot of tests on websites, and how one thing he does is when he's in.
We actually partner with Rand on those tests.
Yes. Okay. And one thing he does is he'll get he'll be in a group of 500 or 1,000 people talking in front of them and ask them, "Hey, I want you to search for this and click on this particular listing on the search results." And then what he did is he had those many people at one time do this, and what happened was those search results, that particular ranking would jump up. And in this question, he's asking him is what's causing that and how. So go ahead and play that. I'm sorry.
So in your opinion, what's happening there that's making the ranking for the page that gets clicked on change so rapidly? And then what's happening when it falls back down, again, relatively rapidly over the next day to 2-3 days?
It's hard to judge immediately like that without actually looking at the data in front of me. As you said, in my opinion, and what my best guess here would be is the general interest that you generate around that subject. And I think Eric has mentioned that, if I'm not mistaken, the French situation quite recently or something like that, the test.
Yeah.
You just, by doing that, you generate exactly the sort of signals that we are looking out for. Mentions and links and social tweets and social mentions, which are basically more links to the page.
Yeah, so that was kind of confusing, when he said that. And those of you, I did a bad job at setting this up, but Andre is the search quality senior strategist at Google in Ireland, and that was his comments. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's going to be kind of crazy for me to sound now after going so often in the first half hour with direct answers from Googlers to disagree with a Googler.
Right.
I think I'm giving Andre the benefit of the doubt. It sounded to me in his answer like I don't think he got exactly what Rand was asking. Right. And I don't think he's aware of the situations that we've tested along with Rand. Mm-hmm. I've been in the audience at MozCon and other places when Rand has run these tests. And it used to be amazing. It doesn't work so much anymore, and we think maybe that's because we were doing these tests in public. But first of all, the first thing to emphasize is these were very fast changes, and they were totally in the local results.
Right.
So we're talking about nowadays people call it the 3-pack. It used to be the 6 or 7-pack. Mm-hmm. The little box that pops up when you're in a local area, you're searching for something. You're in Seattle, and there's pizza in Seattle is your search. You get a box that shows. With a map on the side and shows, here's 3 to 6 pizza parlors that are nearby where you are.
Right.
And so what was being tested was he would pick one. The one I was at was a bridal shop in Seattle, and we were at MozCon. We were all like blocks away from this bridal shop. So he said, use your cell phone, don't use a computer like that. So we're different IP addresses. Go there and do this search, which brings up this bridal shop, but it was ranked down like number 6 or 7 in the local listings. And, everybody do that and click on it and watch what happens.
Yeah.
And within just 2, 3, 4 hours later, as people were going back and checking, lo and behold, that bridal shop was now up like number 1 or number 2 in the listings. I mean, it was dramatic. And he did this he did it in Germany. He did it several different times. It didn't work every time, but it worked enough times that got attention. But here's the other thing, and you hear this in Rand's question. After a few days, in every case, that ranking dropped back down to where it was before. So what it looks like to me is that, at least for a time, Google was taking into account, if like a lot of people in a local area are all of a sudden all clicking on the same result, there's some kind of,
trend or something.
trend going on with that. And maybe we should test that link higher and, bring it higher, at least temporarily, and see, what happens. Are people really more interested in this bridal shop? And of course, when the activity falls off almost immediately, the ranking drops back down. One more thing on that, just very quickly.
Sure.
It was interesting at SMX West just a few months ago.
Mm-hmm.
It was at Google's Paul Harr was speaking about how search works, and he mentioned something very intriguing connected to that, because people were asking directly about, outside of local results. Like, there's been a lot of speculation in the SEO community. Does Google take click-through rate into account? In other words, like, say you're the 7th listing down for a certain keyword, but a lot more people are clicking on that link. Can that cause your link to rise? His direct answer was no. We don't use click-through rate as a direct factor. However, he said, we will sometimes use it in test cases as a confirmatory factor trying to improve search quality. So
that's like a yes and a no answer.
Yeah, well, it's a yes, but in very limited circumstances. Sure. So what he's saying is, like, they will run, and we know that Google runs tests all the time, every day, constantly. In fact, we've been told there's a pretty good chance that throughout the course of a year, any number of times, the results that you're looking at any given time, you might be looking at a test. You might be part of a test where they're rearranging the search results or doing something a little bit different in them with a certain group of people to see what happens. To see do they behave differently? Do they click on different things? So that's what he was saying they will do, is like sometimes they'll dive in, take a segment of users, and then test if a certain query is getting, or a certain link is getting higher click-through rate, even though it's lower down, they'll maybe move that up temporarily. See, does it sustain interest? Does it get more clicks? And they don't use that to affect that search ranking, is what he wanted to emphasize. After the test, it goes back the way it was. What it's used for is their database of knowledge about how people react with search, and it gets into the overall, how do they assess the quality of their results. Mm-hmm. So that was a kind of interesting insight into how they might be using it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Can I come back to one thing now on the socials? One more thing I just wanted to cover before maybe we get into some of the reasons why you shouldn't just go now after my speech, go and delete all your social media profiles because they're absolutely worthless if you're a search marketer. The one last thing I think that needs to be answered, because I'd be surprised if there isn't somebody out there listening right now that isn't jumping up and down their seat and saying, but what about this?
Yeah.
And this is, there are continually these major studies that come out. Moz does one every year. Search Metrics does one every year. They do these humongous studies where they're looking at ranking correlation factors. Mm-hmm. What they do is they look at dozens and dozens and dozens of different possible factors, and then they analyze a huge set of results and queries, and they look at do the sites that rank higher tend to have these things also, these certain signals. And one of the things that consistently in these studies ranks highly as one of the most highly correlated factors are social signals, especially from like Facebook, Twitter, and Google+.
Yeah.
So in other words, what I'm saying here is that sites that tend to do very well in Google search also tend to have lots of social signals. They have lots of tweets, lots of Facebook posts about them, linking to them, lots of Google Plus posts, whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. So, right? There's the evidence. There's the smoking gun. But, as representatives of those studies are usually careful to try to point out, but nobody listens, is that, the old saw, correlation does not equal causation.
True.
Very quick common example is, it can be pointed out that ice cream sales are highly correlated with drowning deaths. In other words, like, when ice cream sales are very high, drowning deaths are also high. So eating more ice cream causes drowning, right?
Right.
No, of course not. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It's very easy there to see that there is an indirect factor in between. Hot summer days. Hot summer days, more people eat ice cream, more people are in the water. So, there's going to be more drowning deaths. So it's the same. I think it's the same thing operating here. The sites that tend to do well in search consistently are sites that are trusted brands, that have reputation, that people are going to be talking about. It's natural that they're going to have more social signals.
Yeah.
So it's just an overall part of their good results, their good success at building their brand, at getting attention, getting noticed. So it's not necessarily a causation relationship.
Gotcha.
Right.
Now, have you seen anything with, if a particular brand or something that's getting a lot of retweets or shares, and anything along that? I mean, as far as maybe getting those tweets or speeding up the index as far as that goes?
Oh, yeah, sure. Again, when we did our study, again, people can find stonetemple.com and go to the studies tab. They'll find all these studies. Just dig down, you'll find the different social studies that we've done. When we did our studies on Twitter indexing, we definitely found what we looked at was not the brand so much as the social authority. We used Moz's social authority measurement, which looking at they've been very transparent about what goes into that. I think it's a better measure than, say, something like Clout, slightly more accurate measure of the probable authority of a. Sorry, you have a question?
No, I was just going to say, are you talking about follower wonk?
Yes, it's part of, actually, social authority is part of follower wonk.
Okay.
So follower wonk is a Twitter evaluation tool that Moz acquired several years ago.
Right.
And one of the things that Moz did was they added to it this social authority algorithm that gives a number between 0 and 100 that evaluates the overall social authority on Twitter of any given profile. So we ranked we looked at this indexation, the likelihood of getting a tweet indexed as a function of social authority, and definitely found a strong correlation that the higher the social authority of the Twitter profile, the more likely its tweets were to be indexed.
Gotcha.
So that would go with brand, because most big brands have high social authority. They're followed by a lot of people. They're retweeted by a lot of people. They're mentioned. They're linked to, et cetera, et cetera. So they get indexed more. They also rank highly, but they're a major brand again. So they get a lot of the signals that would be ranking. It doesn't have to be from social. They get plenty of. They get regular links. They get all kinds of authority signals. They don't need social media to be ranking. So, that being said, but that leads us into, it's a good segue, if you will, into the positive, so does social media, for the person who's interested in SEO, interested in building up their rankings in Google, interested in getting more traffic from search, does social media have any value if it's not a direct ranking signal? And my answer is yes, it does. So we can get into the whys of that if you'd like.
Absolutely.
Okay, so
I do want to leave a little time before the end of the show. We got about 17 minutes. We have an email from a listener that had a question for you. So
we'll have plenty of time for that. I'll get this quickly. So I think the main play here is it's a long-term play. It's a part of, we can kind of reverse engineer from what I just said. I said that the brands that tend to do well in search and also tend to do well in social media are, often brands that have invested in their brand. They have built reputation. They've built a following. They've built customers. They've serviced their customers. They've, or it depends on what it can be. I'm speaking mostly commercially here, but it could be they build authority otherwise, like by being an expert in a field, by providing the information that people want, or the entertainment that people want. Whatever it is that turns people on, they're doing it. They're doing it well. They're getting noticed and getting attention. So here's where social can help with that, because social can be a very big factor in building that reputation, getting your content out there, getting your information out there, getting connected with people, engaging with people in a way that makes them pay attention to your brand. What that can do for you is it can bring the attention and the awareness that earns you the things that we know without a doubt are ranking signals. So, for example, like we try to produce a lot of content that's very high authority. Again, I've been directing people to our studies. We've become famous for that. We invest a lot of time, energy, and money into doing very careful scientific studies about social media and SEO. We publish those. People like that information. It's the information they're not getting anywhere else. They share it on social media. We've had very dramatic results where, because it gets widely shared, a study gets picked up by a writer, a journalist for Fast Company, The Verge, Lifehacker, Huffington Post, et cetera, Washington Post. Mm-hmm. And they end up writing an article about our study because they saw it on social media. And that article links to us. And it's gotten us tremendous authority. With the time that started happening of these major publications linking to our studies, our organic search traffic tripled, and it's never come down from there, and it's steadily rising. So, wow. That wasn't all attributable to social media, but we've used social media successfully to build our reputation of our brand, which helps us noticed, which gets us written about, linked to, and the things that do create real signals. So that's, there's other things, but I think that's a very obvious way. Now, having said that, I'm going to get a little negative here again, and then we can get to the question. And that is, it doesn't mean, however, that just post things on social, post links to your content on social, and it will help build your brand reputation, your SEO. It's work, and it's a long-term project. Right. Eric and I often cite a brilliant study done by BuzzSumo and Moz jointly, published last year on the Moz blog, that looked at 1 million different content pieces out there. And they measured both the links to those content pieces and the social shares. And what they found was not good news for content producers.
I remember
Yeah, it was like the bottom line was the vast majority of content published gets very few social shares and 0 to very few links. The vast majority. But when you focus in on the content that does get both shares and links, that sweet spot content, you find that it's content that real effort has been put into. Mm-hmm. It's data studies, it's journalistic opinion writing, it's something of high value to people. That kind of content can get highly shared and earn a lot of links. And I have to believe that a lot of those links are coming from attention that was generated through the social sharing. So that's what you want to aim for. That's where the value can come. But it only comes with investing the kind of work both into your content and then into how you build your social presence, that over the long term, and we can testify to that from Stone Temple, we worked at that for several years before it really hit big for us. But the payoff was incredible.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, too, we had Rand on last week, and we talked about coming up with strategies around your content. Mm-hmm. It kind of leads right into this. But, you got to have a strategy for everything.
Yeah.
Whether it be your content and then your content leading to your social media and how you're going to, amplify that and engage with the people that are your followers.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's never going to be build it and they will come.
No, exactly.
It's never
Absolutely not.
And now more than ever, because tons of people are building.
Yeah.
BuzzSumo looked at 1 million pieces of content and only found, a sliver, a top 1%, I think it was, that really got any kind of huge, significant traction out of their content. Mm-hmm. So you've got to be, Rand used the term last year, 10x content. Which means everything you publish has got to be 10 times better than anything else on the first page of Google for the keyword it's going after.
Yeah. And that's just going to get that's just going to keep stepping up every year.
Right.
It ain't going to get easier.
No.
Right. But the rewards will be richer for those who make the effort, because not everybody will put the investment in.
Absolutely.
And if your competitors have given up or aren't really trying, aren't doing it, and you're willing to put that investment in, it can be a great way to jump ahead.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All
You're
right.
listening to Search Talk Live. We are sponsored by the Robert Palmer family of companies. You can go to robertpalmercompanies.com. You're listening, we're talking with Mark Traphagen of Stone Temple Consulting about social media and how social media and SEO work together.
Yes. All right. We do have a listener question, and it's pretty cool because it's from a listener in Taiwan.
Yeah, we have listeners all over. We have listeners in Australia. We have a big part of our listeners are in the United States, obviously, but Canada, the UK, Australia, I mean, all over.
Very cool.
Now we got Taiwan.
Yeah. So we got Darren from Taiwan. Thank you for your question, Darren. We appreciate it. He says, I am a marketing background student who is about to graduate and currently looking for a job in SEO, web analytics position. I'd like to know what are some key traits, skills, or abilities that Mark would specifically pay attention to when evaluating an applicant's qualification in this industry.
Good question.
That's a great question. I thought he was going to ask me for a job.
That's next.
That could be that.
That's the follow-up.
Right.
Well, thanks for that question, and greetings to Taiwan. I think the number one thing I can say that can have a real influence, especially for a young person, okay, somebody just getting into the industry, maybe coming out of school, and I've had the great pleasure and honor of mentoring a number of young people into this industry, and do even today here in our company. The number one thing I say is start producing measurable, findable evidence out there that you're thinking about the field. I don't expect you to be an expert when you're starting out. Nobody expects you to be an expert. But I think, nothing impresses me more about a young job candidate coming in than to discover that, he or she, even while they were saying in college studying, was out there writing blog posts, writing on LinkedIn Publisher, writing on Facebook, whatever, about the field, or sharing things that they were seeing or knowing or wondering about. That tells me this person is exploring. They're thinking, they're reading things, they're looking into things. Even if they're asking the wrong questions or making the wrong conclusions, it doesn't make any difference to me if I see that, that kind of passion, that kind of interest. And here's why I say that. Because, listen, in this industry, it's all self-taught. I mean, most of us, it's just beginning to change. There are universities now that have SEO programs or search marketing programs, and even a lot of the ones that do, they aren't really up to date. So most of us that are in this industry, almost all of us, are self-taught. Mm-hmm. We all started at the same place. So where did we learn? 2 places. By investing a time to find who are the real people to be trusted, and beginning to listen to them on social media, follow their blogs, get informed with them, see if you start to build relationships with them online, get known by them, ask them questions. And then the other is finding every opportunity possible to dive in and do it yourself. Mm-hmm. That's how I started. It was like, I told you, it was a literal story. The bookstore owner came in and said, here's a computer, here's the internet connection, take us online and figure it out. And I was like, That's literally what I said. So, but it was a tremendous way to learn. So I think those are the things, do and then demonstrate that in your social media posts, start a blog. Don't worry that it's not the greatest thing in the world. Mm-hmm. Just demonstrate that you're thinking about the industry.
Right.
Great question.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'd kind of like to add to that too. Get really good at what you're doing. Don't just focus on one aspect. You really have to diversify in this industry. If it's SEO, your link building, the website development, all that good stuff. Learn it all as much as you can.
Yeah.
That's where I got my strength in it. I started with SEO, but then I had development. As customers needed more, I kind of learned those things. But some of those things are just enough to be dangerous at, but
Right.
but just focus and keep just honing your skills and learning from people like yourself or Rand Fishkin or all those people that are high influences in the industry that really follow best practices. You got to be careful out there.
But the great thing about this industry, you do have to be careful. And there, like anything else, there are charlatans out there. There are people mouthing off who don't know what they're talking about.
Right.
But if you start discovering some really reputable people, and then you look at who they're talking with and follow, you can start to build up a network pretty fast of people who are reliable. The great thing in this industry, one of the things I love about this industry is the sharing and the transparency. There, you mentioned people like Rand, Eric Enga, who I worked for. They're so generous with their knowledge and willing to share all the time. So, your teachers are right in front of you and you can learn from them. It's a tremendous opportunity.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, and that's one thing you guys are really good at. Rand's good at. Bruce Clay's really good at. You all give that information right on your website for free. And it's, that gives a lot of credibility for you and putting yourself out there. I mean, we do it too in our podcast. I mean, it's a little intimidating. We talk to professionals all day long on every show. So you got to be spot on. So it's, you've got to put yourself out there to get to that level.
Yeah. Absolutely. And if you're in the industry or wanting to be in the industry and you're not doing that, you're really hurting yourself. And I'll say what my grandfather used to say to me is you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
Right.
This is the same kind of thing because all that knowledge is out there from all of these experts, from Mark on down, people that we've had on our show, is that you really have to have that thirst for knowledge. Yeah. And I like to compare the industry to baseball is you're going to fail. It's how can you learn from those failures and correct your mistakes and really build upon those, because one thing I've learned, I've had to teach myself since I've gotten into the industry. I've failed so many times, but it's how you're able to take those failures, build upon them, correct those mistakes, and really move forward. So, I mean, if those are really kind of things you need to focus on. But if you have a thirst for knowledge, that's one thing you have to have because there's always changing in the industry. There's always things going on. You have to really understand who the right influencers are, like you said, Mark, and, who can you trust. And really just soak yourself in everything that they have to say and all the information they're providing. Yeah,
don't be afraid to ask questions. Only the stupid questions are the one you don't ask. So.
Right.
Yeah. Do we have time for me to offer just one more quick piece?
Sure. Please do.
We have 3 minutes.
Okay, one that's very important to me is learn to be a good skeptic. And I want to say very quickly, skeptic does not mean a cynic. There are people in our industry, in all industries on the web, you can find them very quickly on social media who are just cynical, like they just tear everything down. Yeah. Not what I'm talking about. A good skeptic, doesn't take anything at face value, doesn't take something just because, like the subject we're talking about today. Everybody knows that social media must be a ranking signal for Google. Ask, how do you know that? Are you sure?
Right.
Are there, other things you're not thinking about? Have you tested that? Ask those kinds of questions. Don't take anything off of face value. That will set you up for much success in industry and save you a lot of painful failure if you're willing to ask those kind of questions and not just assume or not just buy the conventional wisdom.
Yep. Well, Mark, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure. And thanks for sharing your knowledge with everybody.
Absolutely.
Well, the hour flew by. I had a great time.
It did. Yeah, and if you guys want to check out Stone Temple Consulting, go to their website, check out their blog, check out their videos. Their videos are really entertaining.
Yes. Great stuff.
And they make learning fun. Yeah. So it's kind of a rarity.
The different way you've seen information presented.
Yeah.
Which makes it great.
Yeah. And we thank you for all you guys have done as far as helping out the industry, giving out information, and helping us people better ourselves.
Yes. Absolutely.
All right. Those of you, thanks for listening in to Search Talk Live. We are here every Tuesday, 3:30 to 4:30 Eastern Standard Time. You can go to searchtalklive.com, listen to previous shows. You can get Mark's show. We just finished here. We'll be on there immediately after we finished. You can listen to Rand Fishkin. Last week we were on there. Had a lot of good information as far as content marketing and how to create a strategy. Next week, we've got, who we got on the show next week?
Ooh, I got it right here. We have David Harry.
David Harry, yeah.
Yes, SEO and Google patent expert.
Yes, so we're going to talk some more SEO. So catch us next week, guys. Thanks for listening, and thanks for your support.
Have a good one.
Search Talk Live is a presentation of the Robert Palmer family of companies.